Good morning, my friends. Welcome back to GM Philosophy in the Morning. I'm the GM Philosopher. Today we're talking about something very foundational, very core to the heart of what it means to run TTRPGs, and that is the role of the Game Master. I'm going to pose a question, and I would like for you to think in your mind about the answer for just a moment. If you feel very passionate about this, you can even comment about it. But let this question settle for just a moment. What is actually your role as the game master? What are you actually supposed to do? And I don't mean rules as written, because as much as I love the Dungeons and Dragon DMG, it gives us at the very most an elementary description of what the game master actually is supposed to do. This is by no means a diss on our beloved DMG by any stretch of the imagination. It's just that we're getting deeper here. We want to get deeper into the craft. And that necessitates asking slightly deeper questions than just the baseline. So, once again, I'm going to posit the question: what is your role as the GM? Well, in this video, I'm going to tell you what I believe that role is. And I believe that I'm right about this. As a GM, I have over 20 years of gaming experience. I've run thousands of game sessions. And as a general rule, my game sessions have been extremely popular and well received. This was especially true after the first few years, where I learned to overcome a few of my more awkward mistakes. But defining my role as a GM was not something that I did really thoughtfully or intentionally until probably the latter 5-ish years of my GMing experience. And I will admit that when I committed myself to this role, understanding with intention what the role of the game master is, my games really improved in quality. In fact, I would say that I went from being a beginner who didn't even understand the elementary basics to being an intermediate level GM who understood the role and the concept as is laid out in the DMG or in the GM section of any other TTRPG. But it wasn't until I really embraced the deeper meaning of the role of being game master that my games really became expert level. And I would call myself an expert level GM because I believe I have achieved what most GMs seek after. I have achieved incredibly successful games with players who love to play with me, who keep coming back time after time, who retell with ecstatic fondness the memories they have made at my table. So, with that being said, let's dive a bit deeper into this question of what is the role of the game master. And I'm going to posit a three-legged argument here, three items that I believe the game master should embody, that I believe make up the basic fundamental totality of what it means to embody the role of the game master at your table. And these three principles are as follows. The game master should be a storyteller, an arbiter, and a world builder. Now, let me explain this just a little bit more. Let's start with the role of storyteller. Now, fair enough, a lot of you might be saying, hold on, GM Philosopher. The role of the GM is not to be the storyteller, but to empower the player characters to tell the stories of their characters. And I believe that you are correct about this. This is absolutely true. And this is part of what drives the heart, soul, and immersive power of TTRPGs. And D&D is certainly no exception to this. So what do I mean when I say that the GM should be a storyteller? Well, here's what I mean by this. It is true that as a GM, your job is not to tell the story of the adventure. This is the player character's job, actually. It is, though, your job to put compelling narrative material around the players all the time. I call this filling in the pixels around the characters. When a GM gets really good at giving the characters amazing launching points, subject matter wise speaking, with which to build an immersive story, with which to build an epic story that will truly tell with vivid intrepidness the adventures of their characters, then the game master has succeeded at the first role they were supposed to play in this intellectual cooperative exercise, which is that of storyteller. See, the game master is the one who tees up the kick for the players. The game master is the one who thinks through the core ingredients needed in the cosmic cake of adventure, providing those ingredients to the players and allowing the players to bake them. If the players did not have these amazing ingredients given by the game master, well, guess what? The game would fall literally flat, just like a loaf of bread with no yeast. It would not be very fun. This is why we have a game master, or at least one of the three core reasons why we have a game master. If we did not have a game master, think about this. If we just sat in a circle with our friends and decided we were going to tell an adventure, we wouldn't get very far. There would be this problem where you would need things to interact with, and then each player might naturally go to the place where they create that for themselves. The problem here is that unless everyone agrees that everyone else's creations are canon, there can be no common denominator element to the universe. And that there creates a sort of inconsistency that will likely develop as players disagree on what is real and what is not real, what helps the narrative and what doesn't. There's a reason why the most popular TTRPGs involve a group of players and a game master, because in order to arbitrate what is real and what is not, which pixels are of the material and which pixels are of the metaphorical imagination, somebody needs to make decisions about the world that builds and manifests itself around the players, giving them the opportunity to delve in and create their stories. This is a crucial role of the game master. And when we embody this role with total conviction and confidence and imagination and creativity, we set our players up to do what players do best. Create fun and awesome stories that will probably make us laugh, make us shudder in terror at times, make us question the validity of human morality, and even the argument that humans should be allowed to make decisions at all. And at the end of the day, it will probably result in a fun game experience that we will look back on with fondness, especially with those who are participants of it. And we will probably pound a shot or two of strong ale at the tavern while regaling our friends and family members about the experiences we had around the table, which unfortunately those friends and family members will probably not appreciate near as much as we do because they were not in the mix. They were not in it. They don't have that realness of the experience like we do, those who are around the table. And so that's what makes it kind of a special shared thing that we will remember fondly, and also part of what makes it a little bit real. But all of this is only possible when the GM adequately fills in the pixels around the players with some kind of story ingredients. Now, let us move on to discuss role number 2 of the three-legged stool of the roles required for true game master excellence, the roles that a game master must embrace in order to become truly great at the craft of running games, and that is to be an arbiter. Game masters are required to be an arbiter of the rules, and there is a really good reason for this. Let's go back to our example of a game without a game master, just a bunch of players sitting around a table who start to make decisions about the world and the universe and the narrative of their characters. One might say, I fly to the top of the building and I laser the rest of you to death. Now I am the sole god of the universe. And just like that, the game is over. The narrative is, let's say, lacking at best. I mean, after all, who wants to turn on a movie and within the first 3 minutes, one character ends up being just cosmically powerful, wiping out everyone else, and for the rest of the movie, you just watch this character sit upon their throne and gloat? That's not much of a movie, is it? By the way, do you struggle to come up with plot arcs on the fly? If so, I have the perfect tool for you. It is called My Ultimate Plot Randomizer. It is a free ebook. When you join my email list, you can download this for free. You'll get the link in your first email. It contains 4 D100 tables that will let you roll random plot arcs whenever you need them. Roll the hook, the conflict, and the conclusion, and even add wild and wacky stuff all right there. Download this, print it out, add it to your tool collection, and you will never go without another plot arc again. I give this away for free to help you create awesome plot arcs just like I do. I use this in almost every single session, and you are not going to want to miss out on this, so make sure you grab this. Well, the reason that this does not sound appealing is because it's missing the core fundamental pieces of what make a story fun, immersive, interesting, and awesome. Just like with the group of players who have no arbiter and whose made up rules render the story basically over within the first few minutes, the movie that makes this same mistake is not going to have very much appeal, and here's why. It abandons the traditional storyline narrative structure of exciting storytelling. There's a reason humans like a certain type of story. These stories generally involve some kind of setup, some kind of conflict, which is a challenge that needs to be overcome, and then some kind of conclusion that may feel good or evoke some kind of strong emotion at the end. Maybe we'll feel a little happy about it, but maybe there'll also be some sadness, whatever. But the story itself is an experience. But what separates that 3-minute story that abandons all the rules and isn't fun from the fun 4-hour game session that involves exactly those things: setups, conflicts, and then emotional conclusions? What is the ingredient that's missing in stories that don't contain these important narrative pieces? And I'll tell you exactly what it is. Rules. The universe has rules. And even if the universe following those rules isn't always following the narrative thread of an epic story, in a role-playing game, if we abandon certain rules that make power levels inconsistent and that throw off balance, then we're not going to have a balanced story. See, there's an element of the storytelling experience that requires a bit of balance. It requires a bit of consistency, and it requires a bit of limitation. In other words, the physical laws of the imagined universe must be obeyed to a certain enough point that they are allowed to exist and be real, and those laws and rules need to be set up in such a manner that they provide a framework that will allow for the emergence of that storytelling narrative experience where we hook, we have the setup, there's the conflict or the challenge or the drama, and then we have the satisfying conclusion, which might be the boss fight or the final role play moment, etc. And the game master is the one ultimately responsible for keeping these laws and rules in place and causing this balance to remain in the game so that it doesn't get tipped too far one way or the other, ruining the game, cutting it short, destroying the narrative arc, and thus rendering it much, much less enjoyable and memorable. Now, speaking of the core roles of the GM, being the arbiter of the rules and also the grand storyteller of the pixels around the characters, we come to our final role, which is absolutely 100% every bit as important as the first two. That is the role of world builder. The game master must be an intrepid world builder in order for the game to take place to begin with. Now, you might say, hold on, GM Philosopher. The game master doesn't have to necessarily be an intrepid world builder if they are using a published setting. For example, the game master could use the Greyhawk setting, buy some source books, and you know what? The world's already created, so we can skip that part. Well, that is not necessarily true. While purchasing some kind of world state setting could be a huge boon for the game master and make their job easier and get them further along in the process, that by no means wipes out the requirement of meeting this role head on and crushing it in order to create a sound, exciting, immersive, fun game that'll cause your players to want to keep coming back week after week. Here's what world building really means. We already know that the game master must fill in the pixels around the characters, but there's a deeper question here. What informs the game master of what to put in those pixels? Why put a goblin here instead of an owl bear? Why not make that owl bear a refrigerator if we're just putting things there? Why not make that refrigerator a cosmic refrigerator that freezes time, since there's, no rules necessarily the GM needs to follow to just put things there? Why not open it and have the players sucked through, where they will immediately be rushed through time into a universe where the only thing going on is a showing of the movie Rocky Horror Picture Show, and the whole world is a movie theater? See, the problem with this scenario is that it is lacking consistency of what we know to be a world state. And a world state is usually consistent with something like a certain time, a certain genre, a certain feel, a certain category of geography and experience from a cultural and societal perspective. And there's even a sort of biological nature, fauna element to this as well. In other words, what is in the universe? What is in the world that is available for the GM to pull from to fill the pixels in around the characters? And even more importantly, what are the most likely and interesting things to pull from this world and to put into the pixels around the characters? Unless the GM has good, solid answers for this, filling in pixels is going to become a lot more difficult, and the GM is not as likely to succeed at it. But there's an even deeper question here, which is, how does the GM arbiter the consistency of the world without having the world state solidified in its own natural set of rules and laws? And this is where world building comes in. See, a published adventure can give you all kinds of awesome ingredients, but the GM is still going to need to make crucial decisions about what to pull from in regards to that world for the pixels filling in around the characters. But even more importantly, which elements of that world the GM needs to delve deeper into to create in order to make the world even deeper and more immersive. See, no matter how fleshed out you think a world state is, there's always a level deeper you're going to need to go in the nitty gritty moments of the game. For example, if you pour through all of the world state content that's been published for the world of Greyhawk, you will come up with a finite list of NPCs with which to pull from and interact with. If these are the only PCs you allow into your game, you're very quickly going to run into some issues with having the types of NPCs needed to make your game what it could be at its greatest potential. Why? Well, because there's a finite list of them, and they were not all created with the specific situations in mind that are happening around the player characters. But let's take this even a step deeper. Those NPCs only have so much depth fleshed out for them in the official world state setting information. And if that's the only information you have to share with your players, things are not going to get very deep. See, as a GM, no matter how much prepared world building material you have in front of you, you're always going to need to continue to build upon what exists. And you need to arbitrate this to your players in a way that is consistent, but also a way that lends to a successful narrative framework. But even more than that, you will need to use this information to create a storytelling basis with which your characters can launch from to tell their own stories. Hence why world building is such a crucial role for the game master, no matter how fleshed out the world state seems to be. And at the end of the day, world building really does come down to this. There are only so many pixels with which to fill the world around your player characters. As the GM, you make the decisions about what goes here. You make the decisions about what the NPCs are, what types of buildings the player characters see, what types of natural environments they run into, whether it be a desert or an ocean or a beach or a tropical rainforest or a volcano. What kind of monsters do they run into? What kind of treasure do they find? What kind of spells and abilities do they come into contact with and interact with? What kind of problems beset them? What hidden dangers lurk just beyond the horizon of their senses? All of these decisions are informed by what the GM chooses to put there. And the more planning the GM does, in terms of thinking, how can I lend to teeing up the players to tell a great story, the better the story is going to be. But all of this is still informed by the world building step. And in a way, this is one of the most foundational steps. I can't say for sure that world building is more important than being the arbiter of the rules, and I cannot say for certain that is more important than being a storyteller. Hence why these three elements, I believe, are the three most crucial and equal roles that make up the GM's deeper job when it comes to running games and facilitating successful TTRPGs. Now, I would like to hear your opinions on this. Please drop me a comment. Let me know if you agree that these are truly the three most fundamental roles that the GM should build upon in order to be a successful GM. Are there crucial roles that I've missed? I would posit that the rest of the categories of what it means to be a great GM are actually just subcategories within these three predominant roles that I've already covered. But I would be interested in hearing your take on this. So please leave me a comment and let me know what you think. And that is going to conclude my video for today. Thank you so much for coming back for another episode of GM Philosophy in the Morning. I'm here every single day creating videos about the best game in the world, D&D. So I will see all of you awesome TTRPG people in the next one.